Kel, who is this person that was pregnant? Because it was not me. Like, who was this? And then other thing is, like, how do you remember all these pregnancies but you don't remember your kids for like years? Like, I don't even know, 13, I don't know, 14. And then how do you remember all these pregnancies but you don't remember Nick, you know, in my cheerleading outfit, right? Like, how does your memory work exactly? Because you remember lots of things about me from a long time ago, and it's kind of odd, like, how your memory works. Like, you don't remember, I don't know, do you remember your daughter in a car accident? You remember your son losing his tooth? You remember taking your kids' money? Do you remember being completely physically, mentally abusive? Do you remember that you used to beat me and hit me and choke me and strangle me when I would come out the hospital because I have sickle beta thalassemia disease? Do you remember that? Do you remember that you were addicted to sex? Do you remember that? Do you remember me catching you with a man? Do you remember that? Do you remember you using the money that I created to pay for an entire woman's place? Do you remember that? Do you remember taking the kids to Chicago and not telling me? Do you remember unilaterally filing for divorce and then moving back in with your mistress? Do you remember that? It's just, your memory is so strange. Like, do you remember that you didn't have any money for 5 years and the studio told you that, you know, basically told everybody that you were dead, and so I had to write a pilot for you? Do you remember that I wanted to be a mathematician, but instead I decided to be in a rap group with you? Do you remember that? Do you remember that when no one else was talking about you, I produced and wrote Kel Videos Live? Do you remember? Do you remember I also wrote and produced Ganked? Do you remember that? Do you remember that movie that you did with Cedric the Entertainer? You know, the one that I gave you? Do you remember that you took that and you sold it for $2,500? Do you remember that? Because your memory is so interesting to me, because I don't know why you didn't remember that I don't even like bodily fluids. So that I was actually relieved to find out when you were cheating. When I found out you were cheating, I was relieved. Did you remember that? Do you remember that I lost my virginity to you? Do you remember that? So your memory is interesting. So I think we should, you know what, let's figure out, you know, like, let's sit down, let's have a sit down and let's think about, you know, this memory. I have a few items that might, you know, jog your mind to help you with some of that memory. I don't know if this is like, you know, beginning Alzheimer's or something, but yeah, let's talk about it though, because I'm ready.